Hi, Dr. Rick Marks, and thanks again for joining us with the Relate Well Institute and a little bit more of how you can have healthy, thriving relationships in all aspects of your lives. All right, we're going to talk about the logic of emotions. That's right, folks, the logic of emotions. People like to think that emotions are actually irrational. And if you really understood emotions, you'd find out they're very logical. It makes sense why you would feel that way. It's logical. You may not have to agree with why a person feels the way they feel, but emotions are not irrational. And this is also to reinforce that, and this is very important for those in the church, where you've been taught that love is not a feeling. Love is not an emotion. And I'm here to argue that it is. You see, there is an emotional component to love. This idea that love is strictly an action is bogus, and that you can act your way to a feeling of love. Just think about that logically. If you're in a domestic violence situation and you're beat on a regular basis, I don't care how loving you act, your brain will not feel love for that person. Your brain will always feel threatened by that person. And this is very important. The feelings of love are predicated upon whether a person is a source of pleasure or whether they are a source of pain. And my mentor, Dr. Lori Gordon, made me realize something many, many years ago. Whatever I do, however I do it, whether I like it or not, I am a source of pleasure or I am a source of pain. And she kind of informed me, everything you do, Rick, you're a source of pleasure, you're a source of pain. And if you treat Luella or kids or others in a way on a regular basis that you're a source of pain, don't expect their brains to want to be close to you. Because God designed the brain to stay away from that which is a source of pain, a threat, danger. The brain draws close, intimate, vulnerable to those who are a source of pleasure, loving, caring. So we're going to talk about the logic of emotion, and we're going to start right here. Now, what is the logic of emotion? It's right here. We actually avoid pain and pursue pleasure. That's right, folks. We, as humans, our brains are wired to avoid pain and pursue pleasure. If you have a headache, what do? You take something. Why? Pain pursues pleasure. If you have heartburn, you go take something. Why? Pain pursues pleasure. If I don't feel loved or valued by you because you can constantly criticize, put me down, or tear me down, I distance myself from you. Why? You're not a source of pleasure. You're a source of pain. And so the logic of emotion is that people, our brains avoid pain and pursue pleasure. But what brings us pleasure? What actually brings us pleasure at the biological level as God designed the brain? Well, it's getting our needs met. Now, there's two overarching needs that humans have. Needs for survival, which are food, air, water, and shelter, and needs for bonding, needs for attachment. Research is clear. All humans, from the time they're born to the time they die, must emotionally bond, connect to other brains, to other people. The brain is a social organism. It must emotionally bond. And the failure to bond will mean a failure to thrive later on in adult, particularly in intimate relationships. Now, in order for the brain to bond, you have to have two things: emotional openness and physical closeness. In other words, vulnerability is essential for healthy relationships. Vulnerability is essential for healthy relationships, intimacy, connection. But your brain will not be vulnerable, think emotionally open, to that which it perceives as a threat. Why? Because once my brain perceives you as a threat, I'm not going to be vulnerable, I'm going to be guarded. And the brain distances itself immediately from that which it perceives as a threat. So in order to bond to someone, you got to meet the survival needs, food, air, water, and shelter. But you have to meet the relational needs that create feelings of love, feelings of intimacy. Now, what are these called? We refer to these in our world as cares. And cares, if you learn the relate well process, are 10 relational needs hardwired into the limbic system of the brain, which is the right side of the brain, which is the emotional part of the brain. C stands for comfort. You notice it's A to the 5th power. That means there's 5 A words: attention, acceptance, approval, appreciation, and affection. R is respect. E is encouragement. And the 2 S words are security and support. And when our needs for comfort and attention and acceptance and appreciation, affection, respect, encouragement, security, or support are met, we feel loved. And when they're not met, we feel unloved. It's not difficult for the human brain. It's actually simple. Treat me so I feel loved, treat me the way I feel unloved. It's real simple. And the limbic brain, which is the emotional part of the brain, pleasure and pain, really wants to know one thing all the time: am I loved? Am I loved? Am I loved? And it knows that it's loved based on how you treat people. So let's think about it now. The logic of emotion is we avoid pain, pursue pleasure. What brings us pleasure? Getting our needs met: food, air, water, shelter, and our relational needs, bonding needs, attachment needs, needs for intimacy. I like the way Dr. Ferguson says it in the Great Commitment Ministry that he runs around actually it's international. He says it this way: that love is experienced when our needs are met. So if you're hurting and you need comfort and you get comforted, you feel loved. If you need attention, you get attention, you feel loved. If you need attention, you don't get attention, you feel unloved because you feel invalidated. You feel rejected or abandoned. Meet the need, feel love, pleasure. Don't meet the need, feel pain, because there's an opposite negative feeling: being appreciated or unappreciated, respect or disrespect. Now, here's the thing. When we are in healthy bonds and attachment, which means we're meeting each other's relational needs, that means we tend to confide. We tend to confide in the people that we're close to. We confide in people that bring us pleasure. And when you are not a source of pleasure, I quit confiding in you. To confide in someone requires vulnerability. Want to make this simple? Here's how it goes. When I treat Luella on a regular basis in a way that I'm meeting her relational needs, then we're confiding in each other because we feel close. That means I am a source of pleasure. A source of pleasure. Why? Meeting her needs. She feels loved. She feels valued by me. I'm treating her with HRAG: humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill, which goes back to our core value system in Relate Well. I don't live for me, I'm living for us. Because I live this way as a way of being, because I become a healthy, mature adult, then I am more often than not a source of pleasure. And here's the thing. The things that bring us pleasure, we desire. We desire the things that bring us pleasure. And here's the kicker. We actually, this is important, feel love for the things that bring us pleasure. This is why it makes sense then why I can say I love Luella. Why? She brings me pleasure, I desire her, and I feel love for her. But there were times in my marriage, though she loved me, as a decision, she didn't feel love for me. Why? I was really a source of pain. Immature, acting out, stupid stuff. It's like she said to me once many years ago, I love you, but I don't like you. She wasn't feeling love for me in that moment. Because we feel love for the things that bring us pleasure. That's why people say things like, I love the Jaguars. I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. In that context biologically, it makes sense. Why we say we love something, because we feel it, because we desire it. Now here's the kicker. We feel love for those who are a source of pleasure. And we desire the people or things that bring us pleasure. But when I stop being a source of pleasure, and I start treating her with disrespect, a lack of empathy, ill will, because I'm prideful, then in that moment, I'm no longer a source of pleasure. I am a source of pain. And when we are a source of pain, the brain doesn't feel love. The brain feels threat, danger, beware. So you start to become emotionally guarded. You start to pull back a little bit. Why? Just in case they hurt me more. And what does the brain do? How did God design the brain to deal with the people who and things that are a source of pain? Fight, flight, or freeze. The stress responses of the brain. We fight them because we're really angry. We run from them, the flight response, because we're afraid. Or we shut down and just go numb because you're in a freeze response. And when you're in that freeze response, that numbness, you move to apathy. And you hear things like, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me what you do. I don't care if you have an affair. I don't care if you quit. I don't really care. Why? You've been a source of pain for so long, the brain just goes indifferent. And here's what I learned. Whether you like it or not, you're a source of pain or a source of pleasure. And Rick Marks, you can decide every day, moment by moment, which way I want to be. And it's like my mentor, Dr. Gordon, taught me a long time ago. If you want the world to always feel love for you, you must become a source of pleasure as a way of being. But if you're a source of pain as a way of being, she may, this is key, she can act in a loving way. But that doesn't mean she has the feelings of love. And this is important. When you lose the feelings of love because a person is a source of pain, you can still choose to treat them with goodwill and respect. Did you get that? Though I don't feel love for you, I can still treat you with goodwill and respect. Why? Because when I treat you with goodwill and respect, I'm actually treating you in a loving way. But don't assume that the reason that I treat you in a loving way, goodwill and respect, don't assume that means I feel love for you. I may not. I still may feel that you're a threat. I think you're getting the idea here. If I come across as simple, it's by design. My favorite quote is by Einstein. Einstein said, make things simple, but not simpler. My old closet redneck from North Georgia. I like things simple. So I try to make things as simple as can be. The brain does better with simplicity than complexity. All right. Now, in the scriptures, you can't love your neighbor until you love yourself. Ephesians 5, the Apostle Paul says, if you want to love your wife, you got to love yourself. So how does self-love fit into this whole ability to be a source of pleasure, a source of pain? Here's how. In order to be a source of pleasure, you've got to have healthy self-love. All right? Now, that means you have to have high self-worth and high self-esteem. High self-worth and high self-esteem is important for you to be a source of pleasure on a regular basis as a way of being. Now, what is self-worth? Self-worth is about the value that I place on myself. Worth is about value. Here I got a pointer. This thing I think was like $5 on Amazon, right? Or something like that. That's the value. Now, if it was gold-plated, the value would go up. Value is about worth. Now, people of high self-worth understand these kinds of things. Number one, they understand that they are human and that they're alive. And because they're human and alive, that also means that they exist. And if they exist, they have to exist as themselves, the best version of them. Example, when I got to high school, 75 to 79, I graduated in 1979 from McEachern High School. In high school, I could hang out with every group in high school. I hung out with the ROTC people, ROTC, Navy ROTC. I hung out with the smart people. I hung out with the jocks. I hung out with the drama club. And I hung out with the potheads at the smoke hole. I could fit into any group. You want to know why? I was a chameleon. I could blend in any group and adapt. Why? Because I didn't know me. I was never allowed to be me growing up. I got in trouble for liking chocolate ice cream when everybody else was having vanilla. I don't like vanilla, but I wasn't allowed to not like vanilla. You see, I was always told your thoughts are dumb. That's a stupid way of thinking. And so I learned I can't be me. So if I can't be me, and I still need love and acceptance and approval, so if I conform to what all these groups want, then I'll get acceptance. I'll get love. I'll get the needs met. But it's in an unhealthy way. And what I learned was I had to become the best version of me. So if I am alive and I exist, then I have to exist as the person that God wants me to be. Not what I think you want me to be or what I think I'm supposed to be to get you to like me. Now, high self-worth, I'm alive, I exist, I must be me. But because I'm human, I have needs. And here is very important. Because I have needs, going back to the survival and bonding needs, you have a right to get your needs met. Some people go, no, you don't. Yes, you do. Are you going to let someone starve? That's a biological need for appetite. Of course not. You have a right to get your needs met. And people of high self-worth know that. But they also know this. Though I have a right to get my needs met, I do not have a right to get my needs met at the expense of other people. I like to say it this way and relate well. Get your needs met, cause no harm. Get your needs met, cause no harm. And when my self-worth is high, because I value myself, my self-esteem is high. Self-esteem has to do with how you feel about yourself. Now, self-esteem is linked to 4 questions. And I believe these 4 questions are with you from the time you're born, and they're going to be with you to the time you die. But they're essential in the early years of your life. And when these questions are answered in the affirmative, you will thrive on all social indicators, and you'll be a source of pleasure and not a source of pain more often than not. So what are the 4 questions? Every child's brain, when it comes into the world, wants to know this. Do I have value? Do I matter? Am I loved/lovable? We need to know we're loved. We also need to know we're lovable. And do I have a purpose? Do I have a purpose? Growing up with my dad and my stepmom would tell me over the years, she raised me since I was about 3 or 4, until I left home at age 18 and joined the Navy, you won't amount to much. You see, when I left home at age 18, chronologically adult, emotionally not, I didn't believe I had value. I didn't believe I mattered. I didn't think I was loved or lovable, and I didn't think I had a purpose because I was told I wouldn't amount to much. I didn't have any of those questions answered in the positive. Why? Based on the way that I was treated. They are more often a source of pain. They weren't a source of pleasure. And when our self-esteem is high and our self-worth is high, then you're walking in HREG, humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill. And because of that, you are a source of pleasure, most often. And you're not a source of what? Pain. And guess what? People that engage you and interact with you will always feel what? Love for you. Why? Because they feel loved by you. Love is an emotion. And when you lose the emotions of love, you can choose to act in a loving way, HREG, goodwill and respect. But what if our homes, our workplaces, our churches, was a community of people who lived this way as a way of being? I don't think you'd stop people from wanting to come around you. People would be flocking to you because everyone's looking for love. So, sad thing is with culture, they're looking for love in all the wrong places, as the saying goes. Thanks for tuning in, hearing me out. I hope in some way it's been inspirational for you. It's Dr. Rick Marks with the Relate Well Institute.